Aloha, good morning again. Thank you for joining the Hawaii Coffee Association first virtual conference. Our next panel includes members of the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. Uh, but first, I wanted to, as a follow-up to our last session with Emilio, found him to be very informative, a lot of good practical knowledge there. And we'll do our best to direct questions to him, as well as make his presentation and that video he spoke of available to the members. Um, a lot of the discussion today and tomorrow is about coffee leaf rust, obviously. So I wanted to highlight for the membership what the HCA has been doing in this regard. For 28 weeks, we've been hosting weekly calls. And we take the recordings and notes from those calls and we post them on the website. And I can put that link in the chat. But the folks that are invited to those calls, as I said, they've been going on for 28 weeks. There's an average between 30 and 40 participants, and they include leaders from Hawaii Department of Agriculture. Last week, we had a member of BASF, who is the manufacturer of Preaxar. The Hawaii Coffee Growers Association is invited. HARC, the Hawaii Agriculture Research Center, is invited. The community of chemical suppliers are invited to talk about the availability of product and labeling issues. University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture Human Resources is invited. USDA is invited. PBARC, the Pacific Basin Agriculture Research Center. APHIS, Agricultural Plant Health Inspection Service. SHAC, of which HCA is a founding member, and we get a lot of grants through them, both for technical assistance and for marketing. SHAC stands for Synergistic Hawaii Agricultural Council, and it's a collaboration between the coffee industry, floricultural industry, and the papaya industry. We formed a varietals working group to examine the importation of rust-resistant varieties after they're identified for their attributes, as well as examining and fostering development of rust-resistant varietals that are already in Hawaii. Various lawmakers at a state, local, and federal level are invited to our calls and often participate. We have a feral coffee working group. We work with international partners and also participants commonly on the call of the Maui Coffee Association, the Kona Coffee Farmers Association, the Kona Coffee Council is invited, as well as Hawaii Farm Bureau. So you can tell that it's a multi-agency, ongoing collaborative effort industry-wide, because we understand it's going to take all people working together to solve this problem. I think we've been much better prepared to deal with this crisis than we were with coffee berry borer when it was discovered in 2010. And I just want to thank everybody for participating in these calls so that we stay coordinated, we're efficient, we don't duplicate efforts. Each one of those entities that I mentioned gives a report from week to week, so we know what's happened in the previous week. We can talk about the next steps going forward, and then the following week, we reconvene to find what progress has been made. So as I said, all of those call meeting notes and recordings are shown on our website in the news section, as well as other resources that we come across relating to coffee leaf rust and COVID recovery. So we invite you again to visit those pages. So without taking any more time, I want to thank and introduce the leaders from Hawaii Department of Agriculture. We're going to start off with Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser. She's the chairperson. Secondly, we will have Randall Diaguiar. He's part of the Quality Assurance Branch. And Greg Takashima is leader of the Pesticide Branch. I just want to say thank you particularly to Phyllis for making the heads of her departments available to the Hawaii coffee industry. Plant quarantine is a constant figure in our lives, as is the pesticide branch and the quality assurance branch. So I just want to thank you, Phyllis, for your leadership and making the department available to our industry. Turn the microphone over to you. Mahalo.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate that. I'd like to thank the industry for working together with us. I think us all working together as partners and also with CTAR and the federal agencies has allowed the Department of Agriculture to move quickly and probably at almost record speed because it's only been 8 months since it was first detected. Coffee leaf rust was first detected in October of 2020, and we were able to get um, concurrence with EPA on using systemic fungicides for coffee on May 20th, 2021. So I think that acknowledging the efforts of the department staff. They've all worked really well, collaborating together with the industry and with our agency partners. You have two gentlemen here today from Department of Agriculture that I think you know well. Randall, you've worked with Randall for a long time, and because of coffee leaf rust, you've all grown to know and hear from Greg. So we're here to support the industry. The industry is very important to us. You're one of uh, our top commodities that makes a great economic contribution to the state. You're second. And so for us to do what we've done, we're all just really doing what our job is, and we're here to support you. I'd like to not take up too much time. That way, Randall and Greg will have more time, and you can ask them questions. But I think one of the big things that is on everyone's mind is how is the department going to participate in some kind of subsidy now that the industry is dealing with rust in addition to CBB. And so many of you might know that SB 855, which expanded the subsidy program to include treatment for coffee leaf rust and extend the sunset dates of the subsidy and the position that manages the paperwork for farmers to get the subsidy reimbursement also got extended in this bill. The bill was not on the list of governor's intent to veto bills, so we are just waiting to see when that bill will be signed. There was a lot of concern because the bill did not have an appropriation for the subsidy. So what we were doing here at the department, analyzing our budget, and I did want to inform the industry today that the department has extended existing contract for the CBB subsidy portion. There was a residual amount of money that would have lapsed at the end of this month, which is the fiscal year. We worked together with the County of Hawaii to have a no-cost extension for that. So we'll be able to carry over a balance that exists currently in the contract that we have with Hawaii County. We are working on, while we're waiting to see what the outcome was about the bill, we're working on a new contract, which we're going to have to contact Hawaii County to include the new statutes coverage for also systemic fungicides for coffee leaf rust. We originally intended to use our special fund. However, the new budget for the department has a significant impact on that special fund. And so I would like to announce today that approximately $300,000 in general funds for fiscal year 22 is going to come out of the chairperson's budget. And we're going to use that for the new subsidy program that would be created by SB 855 when it's signed into law. We're hoping that together with the carryover funds for CBB, that will be enough to cover most of the fiscal year. But I do need to request the industry to work with the 2022 legislature for an appropriation for the subsidy program for fiscal year 2023. It's because the department's budget for fiscal 2023 is uncertain. It's further reduced from fiscal 2022. And, we're uncertain about sustaining a subsidy program into that second year of the biennium budget. So please continue to reach out and work with your legislators. Senator Kanuha and Representative Lowen are aware of the $300,000 that we're going to use out of our general fund budget. So just wanted to share that with you. And then in addition to what Randall and Greg are going to discuss with you today, we are committed to work with you on your regular scheduled meetings. I'm sure that if our key points of contacts are not available, we'll make sure that we have someone else designated, at least to represent the department. And we continue to work with USDA APHIS in Honolulu on investigating the pathway for coffee leaf rust. And so Becky Azama and Darcy Oishi are in constant contact with APHIS, and we do have that process going. I'm sure some of you have heard, or many of you have heard, that the race identification is something that can't be done easily. There's a very few experts that can do that, and our access to them so far has been limited because of the coronavirus epidemic in Europe. So we have not been able to move forward with those subject matter experts in Portugal. But we continue to work with APHIS, and we're doing whatever we can to work on the pathway identification. And so that's all I have to share, and I turn it over to Chris, and I'll be participating hopefully for the rest of the morning until you recess. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to provide the update.
Thank you, Phyllis. Attendees, please feel free to share your questions in the chat bar. I also want to take a moment to thank our sponsors of the event. First being Hawaii Department of Agriculture with their specialty product promotion program. Also want to thank our platinum sponsors, Monarch Coffee, Savor Branch, Tricar Braun, Greenwell Farms. Gold sponsors are Satake, Kona Hills, RCIS, silver sponsors, Green Flash Coffee, and Maui Grown Coffee. Thank you, particularly to the Department of Ag. First up, we have Randall Yagiar with Quality Assurance Brands. Randall? Unmute yourself, please.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Orlando de Agia ko'u inao. Noho ao I Kiloa, Maka, Mokupuni, o Hawaii. My office is located in Captain Cook at the Kona Civic Center. We primarily do the green coffee certification and dealer's licensing for the coffee industry. We have offices on Kauai with Jennifer Costa and on Maui, Robert Coffee. This past year, the Sunset Rule took effect and our green coffee standards reverted to pre-2012 standards. During this past year, there were several meetings involving 4 Kona coffee millers regarding changes in green coffee standards. After 2 days, the group of 4 unanimously came up with these proposed changes that you'll see. The role of our office has always been neutral in these meetings, and we are here to help the farmers in the coffee industry. We are more than happy to provide information and guidance to help make an intelligent decision on what can be changed for the good of all farmers in the coffee industry. This past year, the office in Kona, through our voluntary certification program, did 2.2 million pounds of coffee that was certified. On Kauai, 1.2 million pounds were certified, which is an increase from our last year's total in Kona. If there's the proposed changes can be shared, the extra fancy, and number 1 grade. Okay. So during this meeting that I had with the millers, in the yellow highlighted is what the changes are. So for the extra fancy, and number 1 grade, they propose these changes of primary defects, no more than 2 count full defects, no more than 3 count partial defects, and no more than 3 count combined. And the primary defects are considered on that list: a full black, full sour, full mold, full stinker. Part black, part sour, part mold, part stinker. The change for the insect damage, right now, currently it's at 1/5 of a count, no matter how many holes. It will be 2 pinholes and under will count as 1/10. That's what is proposed. For the next slide, proposed changes to prime grade, highlighted in yellow, no more than 2% of primary defects by weight. Right now, there's a 5% of full defects. So this makes it stricter. And then the 2 and under pinhole insect damage will count 50% of the weight score, as right now it's 100% of the weight scored for the 2 and under pinholes. So this is what was suggested, and I forwarded to the HCA committee for grade standards. It's ongoing. It's not set in stone, so you can give us a call, sit down, let us know. I did have a few small farmers call me last week and wondering how they can be heard. And, I suggested what they could do. So that's all I got. That's our update for the past year during this pandemic. Any questions? None? Okay. Oh, okay.
Randall, you mentioned that you had a few small farmers call you in the last week asking what they can do. What did you tell them?
Well, they told me that they talked to Senator Kanuha. I told them, well, you can go and see the HCA, KCFA, KCC, which in turn they said that they've been a part of that, but they haven't been heard. So I said, continue to do what you're doing, you know, bring whoever up, you know, I can forward whatever information to the people like Leo, you know, or they can even discuss, like there's a lot of people out there that has a lot of knowledge on this, Tommy Greenwell, you know, all the mills, Jason Ham, them, they all know. So I forwarded that to them and let them get their manao from them. And if not, come, you know, we can all sit down.
Yeah, in the last year or so, we've had a collaborative discussion, quite a bit of outreach among processors and farmers to try and develop some of these proposed rules. The HCA will be electing a new board. The results of that election will happen tomorrow. So in the new term, we have a letter that's drafted, ready to go to the department to begin the discussions on some of the proposed changes. And I know you've been part of those initial discussions. So if there's anyone out there that has additional comments, please email us through our website, and we'll certainly take all those comments into account. We want something that's works for everyone and also has a much longer shelf life in terms of grade standards. We want to, you know, complete this process. It was amended when Coffee Berry Board was introduced in the response to that, and we want to get a really solid footing going forward in terms of grade standards. Thank you, Randall, for your participation, and to you, Phyllis, as well, for your leadership.
Thanks. There's one question from Rob. He wants to know the current standards. Oh, somebody just put it up there. Oh, right on. Great. Thanks.
We do what we can. Thank you all. Okay. Any more questions for Randall? Okay. Thank you, Randall. Next up, we have Greg Takashima. He's leading the pesticide branch and has been super helpful of late. So with that, Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Hawaii Coffee Association, for having us. Let's see if we can pull up my presentation really quickly. Okay, so my presentation is mostly regarding the pesticide Preaxorxemium that I'm sure many of you have heard about at this point. This presentation is very similar in concept to what our other Zoom meetings and Zoom outreaches have been, but you know, I wanted to go over some of the background and provide you folks with just a little more information thus far. Okay, so in 1975, give you a little bit more background. FIFRA was established. It provided federal rules and regulations for all pesticides. It gave us the famous, it is a violation of federal law to use this product in a manner inconsistent with its labeling. That FIFRA also provided pesticide labels with requirements such as PPEs, site locations, dilution rates, storage and disposal, and proper storage and disposal, as well as other restrictions. So today, you know, we've gone down the road of getting Preaxorxemium, a fungicide, a dual active ingredient fungicide that originally did not have coffee listed as an application site on the label. So to get around that, you know, everybody asks, how can Preaxor be used on coffee? Basically, Hawaii Coffee Association, in conjunction with Hawaii Coffee Growers Association and others in the industry, provided the department with a Section 18 request. So what is a Section 18 request? It authorizes EPA to exempt a state and or a federal agency from provisions of FIFA. So it allows users like yourselves to use the product on a site that's not necessarily on that original label. As Phyllis stated, the coffee leaf rust was originally found in October of 2020. We worked with the industry to get the submittal together, submitted it in April of 2021, April 1st actually, and the approval was made in May of 2021. So it took them a little over 45, I think it totaled up to almost 60 days. So let's get into a little bit of what's required for the application of Preaxorzemium. So in terms of PPE, these are the respirator requirements. A NIOSH approved particulate filtering face piece respirator. I'll show you a picture of that later. Elastomeric particulate respirator with an NP or R filter, or a positive flow air purifying respirator. So I'll show you pictures of those right now. So that particulate filter, that first one, it's very similar to the N95 mask that we've all known and loved over the last 15 months or so. It's the same as long as it has that N95 designation, it would be considered appropriate PPE for Preaxorzemium. This would be the half face respirator, and then the positive pressure breathing apparatus. Okay, and then under the Section 18 label, eye protection is required. So the photo of the eye protection right there is an appropriate eye protection. You can't use, reading glasses because it doesn't have temporal or brow protection. You can't use sunglasses. It doesn't have either of those either. So you have to cover the sides as well as the top. A little more about the use rates specifically under the Section 18 label. Per application, the maximum use rates allowed are 7.14 fluid ounces per acre. And the maximum number of applications per year is 2. There's that on the bottom, there's the minimum retreatment interval. So basically that means you can't retreat a field of coffee that you sprayed for 30 days. It has to remain you make your first application, you have to wait 30 days, and then you can make another application. The maximum rate per year is basically double that, double the 7.14. So 14.28 fluid ounces per acre. And this is kind of a big one that I know several of you folks have voiced your concerns over, is that the pre-harvest interval. So 45 days from your initial application, you're not able to harvest your crop. That is a requirement by the label, the Section 18 label. So if you folks are getting close to harvest time, don't apply this specific product because the pre-harvest interval it's a long pre-harvest interval. And restricted entry interval is 12 hours. So once you spray it, stay out for 12 hours, and then you can go back in and do what you guys need to do. These are more restrictions specific to Preaxor. It can't be tank mixed with any other products that's in the label. You may only mix it with adjuvants and non-ionic surfactants or organosilicone. There's also the importance of making more than 2 sequential applications of Preaxor before alternating to a non-group 7 or non-group 11. I'll kind of go over that in the next slide. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but basically what we're trying to prevent is resistance in the coffee leaf rust fungus by not sequentially applying different groups. You'll be able to target the fungus in a different mode of action. So making sure that we switch over from a group 7 and group 11, which Priaxor is, over to different fungicides like your cosides and your coppers, and all those will provide us with a better chance of reducing resistance. More restrictions. You also need to provide sufficient water for Priaxor, a minimum of 20 gallons of water per acre. So basically, in your tank, you want to put the 7.14 ounces of Priaxor and then put in 20 gallons if you're only doing 1 acre. So, if you have more than that, you scale it up. But that is the minimum amount of water that you have to apply with Priaxor. You can do ground applications only, no aerials, no drone applications. It is only for field-grown coffee. You may not use Priaxor for nurseries or greenhouses. And this is kind of a big one. Users must be in possession of the Section 18 label and the container label while making applications. You don't necessarily have to have the paper label that's provided by the dealers, but you do have to have, arguably you could have the Section 18 label on your phone, on your smartphone, and have the regular Section 3 label on the jug with you while you're applying. Okay, going to a couple more restrictions. You must maintain a 25-foot buffer between the point of application and the edge of the field. We've had several questions asked about, well, what if my neighbor is a coffee farmer as well? Can we spray up right up to the edge line of both of our properties so that we can protect everything? Unfortunately, no. You would have to maintain that 25-foot buffer. There's nothing in the label that states adjoining farms may not fall under the 25-foot buffer. So we deal with we work with the labels and the manufacturers to provide this kind of information. Sorry about that. Here's another pretty interesting one. Maintain a vegetative buffer between where the product is applied and the downslope edge of the field to reduce runoff. So I did get specific, and this question has also come up with some of our inspectors. So I requested information from our Deputy Attorney General. Hawaii doesn't specifically have a law definition of what a vegetative buffer is, but going through other states and some of their definitions, we've come up with a narrow permanent strip of dense perennial vegetation parallel to the contours of the land and perpendicular to the dominant slope of the field. So most of us know generally what a vegetative buffer is and can spot one from a mile away. So there's nothing specific about it as of yet in terms of statute. And then let's see. The normal do not apply when wind speeds exceed 15 miles an hour at the application site. So ensure that you're able to document the wind speed, use an anemometer or something similar to get the wind speed down to make sure that you're not drifting off target. Let's see. Tank mixing, we did go over that. There's no, you can't tank mix this product with any other products other than adjuvants or organosilicates. So this is nothing new, but we do need notification to the pesticides branch at least 7 days prior to application. Please send it to the email above, hdoa.sec18, SEC18 at hawaii.gov. There's the information provided. I provided a couple of handouts specific to the notifications and what's required. So we do check the notifications. I check them daily to ensure that we have an up-to-date notification system. We also need within 10 days of application the record of the pesticide application. All of these records are provided, they're summarized, compiled, and provided to EPA. We hold on to the hard copies and the actual records. We just aggregate the information and then provide it to EPA. So there's no specific information that goes to EPA other than amounts used in aggregate, areas used and all that stuff, acreage. So, your information is safe with the department and it stays within internally. I did want to mention a shout out to Andrea Kawabata. I believe she will be presenting to you folks relatively soon. She is the extension agent for coffee and orchard crops. I'm sure most of you have her contact information, but if not, there it is. And I wanted to give you folks the contact information of my education section. They are bound to privacy to ensure that none of the information that they are provided gets over to the enforcement section. So please, if you have questions, if you have, if you want to get WPS trained, they're certified to do that type of training as well. All of the outreach specialists, they're very easy to talk to, great people. And if you have any other questions, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
So we have a couple of questions. One is from Rob, who asks, is Priaxor banned in coffee in any coffee importing countries? Japan, South Korea, etc. I think this speaks to our MRO with maximum residual levels. Aware of that?
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of the use of Priaxor being banned in any other coffee importing countries, but I can do some digging and find out definitively for you folks.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation early on, and BASF had a response to that. If anybody else is in the audience that knows the answer to that, please share it. Otherwise, we can follow up. Second question is from Darwin, asking if handheld wind monitoring devices are okay.
Monitoring devices, an anemometer. So yes, they are definitely, they are okay. That's definitely what we want you folks to use.
Okay. Next question is from Ray, who asks, why is aerial application not approved? Because it is approved on the label.
So the label, the Section 18 label was provided by BASF, the registrant. I believe they're the ones who provide the prohibitions and state the general requirements for the product. Generally, when they have prohibitions like that, it's because they don't have the data on it. So that's why it wasn't included.
Right. And, when we first learned about the discovery of coffee leaf rust in Hawaii, we spoke with producers in other countries, and virtually all of them said our first line of defense was going to be systemic fungicides. And we quickly learned that we didn't have any systemic fungicides approved on coffee in Hawaii, which is what led to this Section 18 application that we were able to achieve working with your department in amazing time, that it's ready so quickly. But I want to remind the audience that it's not, just up to the Coffee Association or the Department of Agriculture. We need a willing manufacturer to participate in the Section 18. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and the selection of the product is not easy and not by accident. And I think Julie Coughlin will likely touch on some of that in her talk, which comes up after this one with her work with the IR4 program. I have a question here. Can someone please get rid of feral coffee farms? Many are owned by elderly farmers who cannot maintain and control infestations, which directly affects other farms. Prexor spraying is more for big farms. There are many 2 to 3 acre farms that will not be able to spend the money for this. Can you help us with feral farms? It will benefit us the most. That's a question from Laureen. I ask it to anyone on the panel who would like to take it.
We're in the process of mapping where we're detecting feral coffee. But I don't think at this time, we have the capacity as far as workforce and funds to start trying to work with feral coffee owners or property owners. Up to this point, as you know, because staff has been involved in all your weekly or bi-monthly meetings, that and even with the pesticides enforcement officers, we're trying to make sure that we practice really good biosecurity, because we don't want to be the vector. So we are mapping where we're finding it outside of commercial production, and that's the extent right now of what we're doing with feral coffee. As far as the outreach part, maybe this is something that we need to work with CTAR in the near future to see how we're going to approach this. But honestly, we're working the best we can with the resources that we have.
Yeah, thanks, Phyllis. And if I could add to that a little bit, we learned some of the challenges relating to feral coffee about 10 years ago when we were dealing with coffee berry borer. And, there's a lot of private property issues. Many of those farms are leased. So getting access, getting permission, getting the resources to eradicate a feral farm, which may ultimately spread spores, is certainly a challenge. And we've had discussions. We've had the invasive species councils on our call from Maui and Big Island, and we've also had conversations with a company called Forest Solutions. And I believe it was in Emilio's talk earlier. One of the comments in the chat was that people wanted to know, if they could get some assistance with pruning, whether it was through a subsidy program or a pay for. I'm reasonably certain that Forest Solutions would be happy to prune your trees on a pay for basis. But for us, Laureen, it's a very challenging issue that you raise. And while that's simmering, we need to do all we can to try and put out the immediate fire. And for us, the short-term solution is the systemic fungicides, and the longer-term solutions is the transitioning to rust-resistant varieties, and also developing an IPM for Hawaii, which I know the university is working on along with the PBARC, so that we can give everybody a roadmap. We've shared resources found in other parts of the world that can be somewhat adapted to Hawaii, but some of the practices that work in other places don't necessarily work in Hawaii for various reasons, whether it's economics or regulatory or cultural. But we are aware of the feral coffee issue. It's just not a very easy problem to solve. So we want to keep working on everything that we can do to assist Hawaii's farmers and allow the industry to survive. Okay, I've got a comment from Melissa. Commercial growers in neighborhoods that I am surveying and for CLR have started working together to get permission from feral coffee owners to spray or prune back these plants. Most feral coffee owners have been compliant. This requires labor, time, money from the commercial neighbors. All true. Again, from Laureen, feral farms are widespread in Kona, and we will have many more because CLR maintenance is hard for small farmer. We will not use Preaxor because it sounds so dangerous, but we can maintain our farm. Other ways, having a neighboring feral farm will make it impossible to maintain. Agreed. From Patrick, please reconfirm the contact name, phone number for Mitch McClure. So I believe that was you, Greg. Maui contact Mitch McClure.
Sure. Let me get it for you. His office number is 808-873-3078. He also has a work cell phone. You could probably reach him on that if he doesn't respond on his office phone. His work cell phone number is 808-793-7035.
Okay, I think we need to wrap it up. Final comment from Werner. Hope everyone is aware that labels like natural, organic, biological are out the door and spraying such toxic poisons. Okay. Without any side effects. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Werner. We did get, or we were successful in asking the governor to a state of emergency so that growers could retain their organic certification. You can email Greg for more information about that. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. Paula's giving me the hook. So I just want to say thanks to each of you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you again for joining us for this important discussion. Our discussion will be with University of Hawaii. And I want to thank the department for their sponsorship, as well as all of our sponsors. Please remember to submit your ballots that were emailed around 8 a.m. this morning. Aloha and thank you.
Thanks for having us.